Just for a quick final look at Volcano 2 before moving on, I thought it worth reverse engineering a preset, as it were, or picking it apart, to look at how the preset has been put together. Additionally, I'll indicate a couple of things not seen so far. I'm using the ChopDo preset found here in the ARP and Sequence folder. You'll see it's made up of 2 filters and takes on the tube style or characteristic, with filter number 1 being a high-pass filter with 48 dB of slope to quickly remove those frequencies below 35 Hz or thereabouts. If you want this roll-off slope to be more gentle, just change it to 12. I'll take it back to 48. In terms of the modulation used, we have 2 XLFOs for this preset. Of course, they're already set up, but if you want to add further modulation, click on here, as we've done before, to illuminate the target options. You'll see the step sequencer for XLFO number 1 is set to quarter notes. We've had this set at 3 previously, so adjust as you feel fit. I'm going to return it back to quarter notes for our preset. Therefore, as a result, we see these steps here in the display. We have 8 points, 4 up and 4 down, to reflect the quarter note cycle. By the way, if you want to adapt this by adopting further steps, for example, then click on the plus button here. Now we see step number 9 added. It's at the foot position or the lowest position of the cycle. So you'll need to take it to the top to continue the same step sequence pattern, and then add another step, step number 10, to return to the foot again as it cycles up and down. Okay, now I'm going to revert back to the preset, so I'll click on the minus button twice to remove those extra 2 steps just added. The phase offset is set to 0, but left click and drag to adjust if you prefer. In terms of further editing what we have here, once you select a step, here it's number 1, the extra parameters glide open for you to adjust. And now you could adjust the individual glide between steps here for step number 1 by changing the shape from the sine wave it's set at the present to any of these options. I'm going to revert back to sine. Now, if I remember correctly, these steps are a mixture of sine and linear. Yes, 3 is linear, as are 5 and 7. Should you want to adjust the main XLFO number 1 glide, adjust with this global glide dial. What you set this to will determine the position within a step where the XLFO begins to interpolate to the next step's value. And what you set this global glide parameter to will be added to the individual glide values set with their glide dial to the right. Notice that as you take the global glide up, in this example the waveform display indicates this with a more gentle undulation between steps. Now I've got the vocal file here for our signal. I'll start playback and adjust the parameters to hear the effect. You'll notice initially it sounds like a trance gate because of the extreme step positions. Then as I adjust to make the glide transition more gentle, it smooths out the staccato gated effect. Have a listen.
Don't you go, this I need you to hear, even though all my intentions happen from the heart. It's gone too long, I can't keep playing that game. Don't you go, this I need you to hear, even though all my intentions happen from the heart. It's gone too long, I can't keep playing that game.
Okay, so that's what you can do then when you want to adjust the glide individually for all the different steps that you've got within a preset, and by adding those individual glides between the steps to the global glide dial means you can get that more smooth effect. If you want to take this a step further, by tying together the tempo-related lock steps to your output routing configuration, and by association linked to your 2 separate filters, filter number 1 and number 2 here, then of course you can either do this manually by adjusting the center frequency, or indeed the peak, or in fact the frequency cutoff pan point. Well, of course you can do this manually, but to be even more creative, and once you've done it, always have it remembered, then of course automating it within your DAW makes this a convenient reality. I'll start playback once more, and I'll flick between the routing configurations from what we've got at the moment, the general stereo setting, to the individual left and right outputs, and also to the mid and side. You'll notice that as I do flick between these routing configurations, the output sound is dramatically different. Have another listen, here we go.
Wears his heart on his sleeve, it's comfortable, but you must know by now it's just not me. Don't you go, this I need you to hear, even though all my intentions happen from the heart. It's gone too long, I can't keep playing the part of the man who wears his heart on his sleeve. It's comfortable, but you must know by now it's just not me.
If you want to use Volcano 2's XLFOs as an arpeggiator, you can click here, this snap button, to reveal this small piano keyboard. As a consequence, now your XLFO converts to a 2-octave range, and the steps set up, here at quarter notes, well, they will now snap to notes on this piano keyboard. Because I've got the slot level set to full, the modulation amount will correspond to exactly 2 octaves. And you'll have noticed the display to the right reflects this. Okay, now there is one final option I want to look at, and it's accessed by clicking this button here, found on these 2 XLFOs that we have incorporated as part of our preset. I know it looks like a save button, but it's actually an access point to get at these XLFO preset options. I'm going to try some out for both of our XLFOs and adjust to adapt this to our vocal track. Here we go.
Don't you go, this I need you to hear, even though all my intentions happen from the heart. It's gone too long, I can't keep playing the part of the man who wears his heart on his sleeve. It's comfortable, but you must know by now it's just not me. Don't you go, this I need you to hear, even though all my intentions happen from the heart.
Okay then, so over the last 4 tutorials, we've had a good look around Volcano 2, this high quality filtering and modulation plugin.